What is it? What essentially is the material spewing out? Do you know?
Well, now it's just cloud seeding. Before, 6 years ago, before there were thousands of cloud busters, this stuff would quickly spread out, blot out the blue sky, come down to the ground pretty fast, and destroy all of the cumulus clouds below it. Because these are sprayed above the cumulus clouds. These are sprayed from 12 to 20,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And before the cloudbuster neutralized the poison in them, they used to come down and sicken people, and the hospitals were filled during 1999 with people with respiratory sicknesses. Then gradually those sicknesses turned into liver dysfunction and kidney dysfunction. So those became the fibromyalgia, the hepatitis C, and all the other new chronic sicknesses you never heard about, Lyme disease, chronic fatigue. They all became endemic, but they're one sickness. They're depressed liver and kidney and spleen. And people aren't getting sick anymore, and it's easy to check that out.
So
a cloudbuster's range is about 200 miles for disabling chemtrails.
So did they take the harmful substances out?
No, I think if you look, on any day you see a chemtrail jet, you're going to see 2 or 3 more. Watch for the ones where the chemtrails disappear really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Those are probably the poisonous ones. The rest of them are just cloud seeding, skywriting.
Trying to do what?
I think it's psychological. I think that it's mainly for psychological effect. They've got all this money invested, thousands and thousands of planes that used to be passenger planes are converted to chemtrail planes, and they've got endless resources, and they probably keep thinking that they're going to overcome all this orgonite at some point.
So now you think
there's... That's crazy, see? But the parasites, like I say,
Sure.
They're not creatively intelligent. They're just cunning.
Yeah.
They'll keep beating their heads against the wall until their heads break apart. Okay?
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that, because more and more with all the people I talk to, just this past week we talked to someone in Berlin about the financial problem, talked to someone in Canada 2 days ago, financial experts, and then weekly with Andrew Goss. And more I'm learning that these people are not very intelligent, they're just cunning.
Yeah.
And they're literally ready to do something, no matter how bizarre it is, even if it keeps it going for another day or a week.
Sure. Well, this regime keeps trying to nuke Persia. They think if they can nuke Persia, they can start World War III.
Yeah.
They're not rational.
It's just not rational, is it?
No, and people are stopping them from doing that. They're being prevented.
Mm-hmm.
They're being prevented from it. Otherwise, we would have all been dead by now, or else imprisoned, because they got plenty of underground prisons for people like you and me.
Yeah.
And there are probably prisoners in there now, too, probably ex-military guys who wouldn't go along with the program, and other people. I don't know if anybody's been arrested, but, boy, they'd sure like to. They're so out of control. But the problem is they can't do anything overt because too many people will wake up and resist them. We're all armed.
That's
Americans
right.
are all armed.
Yeah.
You can't control people who are armed if they're not willing to be controlled. Our parents were willing to be controlled back in the 50s. It was a fascist generation. You know.
Sure.
Sure. All these people born in the Depression, they all became fascists, all the white people. And that has been the political force for this regime since World War II. They created the CIA and the U.S. Air Force, in 1947 to reinforce all this horror. And now they're trying to convert all these Air Force cadets to fundamentalist Christianity. So they'll bomb Persia and Syria, without a qualm of conscience.
Yes, I've read
that.
Well,
people who have no character have no conscience. But it's the staff at the academy who are trying to convert these people to foment them out fundamentalist Christianity. Yeah.
If you'd like to join us, 888-663-6386. Big audience tonight. Come on in, join us. Question or comment for Don Croft. My name is Patrick Timpone. Don is the chief mucky muck up there at worldwithoutparasites.com. Actually, his wife Carol runs the show, but we tell Don he's in charge, and he just believes it.
CEO and sole employee.
Check out, they have a lot of really cool products. And they have the Terminator Zapper, which is the one I have strapped to my leg right now, which I really love. Don, tell us about some type of implement. I don't know if you all have them or other people that you can put on your property to bring the rain. What is that called, and how would we get one of those?
Oh, you know what? You might be talking about...
Isn't it a big, long kind of tube thing? Or?
Oh, well, Carol and I invented the Organite Cloudbuster in... Let's see, we made it in March 2001 and took it up the East Coast, up and down the East Coast to experiment with it. This is based on Wilhelm Reich's original Cloudbuster, which he used to reverse the desert in Arizona. He caused grass to grow in Tucson in 1953.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, the drawback of his device, and which is what he clearly warned people about, is that if you don't use it right, you're going to create some bad effects somewhere else.
Oh.
You can create rain with this thing, but you might create flood somewhere else.
Yeah.
So he used it very sparingly. But with the base of ours is organized, so you can't do any harm with it. You're not just pulling bad energy out and putting it somewhere else. You're changing that into good energy and throwing it back out there.
Okay.
And psychics see this huge tornado-shaped field effect from it. It goes out for 100 miles or so.
Wow.
Yeah, but only in the upper atmosphere, above the clouds.
So you all sell like a big base, and then do people put the pipes in?
Yeah, and Andy makes these. He was the first one to start making these.
Oh, the ctbusters.com.
Right, and he makes them. The free instructions are on our forum website, ethericwarriors.com.
Ethericwarriors.com, right.
Yeah, and most of the people that made the first round of these back in 2001, 2002, several thousand throughout North America and Europe and Japan, and which is where the chemtrails were and are. They're not in Africa. They're not in South America. They're not in most of Asia except China. I think they're in China.
Uh-huh.
They're not in Russia. And no death towers in Russia either, by the way.
Oh, it's all satellite
Yeah,
stuff.
how about that?
Yeah.
But everybody's got a phone. Anyway, it's 2 gallons of organite base, and there's 6 pipes that are 6 feet long. They come up out of the base. So it's not necessary to aim that thing. You just stick it in your yard, and it creates a field effect.
And you'll get rain on your property.
No, and here's the thing. If you want to get rain, if you're in a drought, and this is what a lot of people are doing.
I'm in a big one, boy.
Okay. You've got to get pretty far afield and disable the weather weaponry.
What?
And if nobody's done that in Texas, somebody ought to do it. That was done. George Ritchell did that in Africa, and the Kalahari is green now. Kalahari Desert's green. The Namib Desert is starting to reverse because he went along the Indian Ocean coast from Mozambique all the way down to Cape Town, disabled every single weather warfare facility with Organite.
Caller, I'll get you in a moment. The person that just called will pick it up, so stay right there. Well, how do you disable the weather weaponry?
Okay, same thing. The simple tower busters. Okay, 1 per tower. A HARP transmitter, a weather weapon, is 20, 30, 40 towers together in a field. A lot of the old shortwave broadcast stations were turned into weather weapons back in the 70s.
So how do I find out where they are in Texas?
You have to drive around and find them. They put them on all the highways because they require a lot of service work, so they're not going to put them in a real remote spot.
But they look different than cell phone towers?
Well, anytime you see 2 towers standing together, even if it's a radio transmitter, TV transmitter, it's also a weather weapon.
Do you have to do...
They're using it, yeah. They've requisitioned every standing tower in the world and created a weapon. And if there are still some communication functions to these things, they've overlaid that with their weaponry.
And so you have to put a tower buster on each one?
Yeah, every time you see a tower, throw a tower buster out. If it's a really huge tower with a lot of grisly-looking stuff on it, put 3 or 4 tower busters out.
I see.
And don't put it too close, okay, because the feds look for these things.
Okay.
Yeah, so within a quarter mile is sufficient.
Oh.
And we always toss them in bushes on private property or in ponds, creeks, things like that.
So this weather weaponry is what is precipitating the different weather extremes?
Yeah. They're trying to make a desert out of the whole world. They started that back in the 70s. Now, there's a guy in Spain that's reversing all that pretty much single-handed, although he's basing his work on what some other people did previously.
Uh-huh.
And, he's posting on our forum. His name is Jesus, and